Most people remember the day they bought their first house. I remember the day I foreclosed on my family's. It wasn't a choice I ever imagined making. But when the people who raised you spend years tearing down your worth, treating you as the safety net for their bad decisions, sometimes the only way to survive is to stop catching them when they fall. The sky that morning was cold and slate gray. Rain threatened but held back, as if the world itself was waiting to see what I'd do. I stood across the street from my childhood home, now overgrown and weather-worn, watching as the sheriff posted the foreclosure notice on the door. The bright orange paper flapped in the breeze like a final, undeniable truth. Behind me, a silver SUV screeched to a stop. My mother's voice rang out sharp with fury. "You can't do this, Vanessa!" But I already had. They thought I was the family's invisible accountant, the daughter who would quietly cover my golden brother's failed business loans, my parents' maxed out credit cards, and their second mortgage they never told me about. They thought I'd never stand up, that I couldn't. What they didn't know was that for years, while they erased me from family photos and gatherings, I was building something bigger than they could imagine. And today, the day they lost everything they once lorded over me, wasn't the end. It was my beginning. My name is Vanessa Clark. I'm 36, and for as long as I can remember, I've been invisible in my own family. People think the middle-class suburbs of Boston are safe, predictable, a place where kids ride bikes until sunset. Neighbors smile politely, and family barbecues stretch into warm summer nights. And in some ways, that's true. On the surface, my family looked picture-perfect. We lived in a grand colonial house at the end of a maple-lined cul-de-sac in Ashbury Heights. White shutters, a red door that Mom repainted every spring, an American flag fluttering on the porch. Our lawn was always immaculate. My mother made sure of it. She believed that a perfect lawn reflected a perfect family, but if you stepped inside, past the polished hardwood floors and carefully arranged Pottery Barn decor, the cracks began to show. My parents, Judith and Raymond Clark, weren't cruel in the way strangers imagined when I told my story years later. They didn't scream. They didn't throw things. They didn't hit. They dismissed. They minimized. They ignored. And that, I've come to realize, can be even more damaging. My younger brother Evan was the golden child. It wasn't even a secret. "Your brother's special," Mom would say openly at family dinners, as if I needed the reminder. "He's got natural charisma. He's a leader. You should watch and learn." Even when we were little, the difference was obvious. When Evan scored a goal in Pee Wee soccer, Dad cheered so loudly the coach once asked him to tone it down. When I won a regional spelling bee, my mother told me not to mention it at family gatherings because it might make Evan feel inferior. I was the responsible one, the easy child, the girl who followed the rules, did her homework, and never made waves. "Vanessa's so self-sufficient," Dad would boast at holiday parties, patting my head like I was a clever puppy. "She'll never need anyone to take care of her. She's the rock." I didn't realize it at the time, but that was their excuse. Their justification for giving Evan every resource, every second chance, every bailout, and giving me nothing. By the time I graduated high school, Evan already had his first car, a brand new silver Jeep Grand Cherokee. A reward for his potential, Dad said. I took the bus to my part-time job at the library. When I was accepted to Northeastern University for finance, my parents offered to pay half of my tuition. "You're practical, Ness," Mom said. "You can handle some loans. It'll teach you resilience." When Evan got into a private business college, they paid everything: full tuition, room, board, even a monthly allowance. "We don't want him distracted by financial stress," Dad explained. The irony was suffocating. I didn't complain. Not out loud. Complaining only made things worse. "Don't be ungrateful," Mom would snap. "Your brother has different needs." So I worked. I took out student loans. I budgeted. I lived in cramped apartments with peeling linoleum and secondhand futons. I studied until my eyes burned because failure wasn't an option. Not for me. I had no safety net. Evan. He dropped out after 2 years. College isn't for visionaries, he announced. I'm starting my own business. That business, a trendy tech startup, burned through $250,000 of my parents' retirement savings in under 18 months. Startups are risky. Dad shrugged when creditors started calling. He just needs time. That was the first time they asked for my help. Just a small loan, Vanessa, Mom said, her voice sweet but laced with expectation. You're the only one in the family who understands money. It wasn't small. It was $30,000. I should have said no. But guilt is a powerful thing, especially when it's been weaponized against you for decades. We believed in you when no one else did, Dad reminded me. Family supports family. I wrote the check. And just like that, the pattern was set. Over the next decade, the financial favors multiplied. A second business idea for Evan? Another $15,000. Medical bills for Dad's back surgery? $8,000. Covering the property tax when they refinanced the house to pay off Evan's debts? $12,500. It's not forever, Mom always promised. Just until we're back on our feet. But back on their feet never came. Every time I bailed them out, they called me their guardian angel. And every time I hesitated, they called me selfish. What's money compared to family? Dad would ask. You make plenty. By my early 30s, I wasn't just financially stable. I was thriving. I'd moved from entry-level analyst to senior portfolio manager at Monarch Financial, a respected investment firm in downtown Boston. I was managing high-net-worth client portfolios and making six figures. But to my family, that just made me a bigger resource. It's different for you, Mom would say when Evan's debts piled up again. You have no kids, no husband. You don't have the expenses Evan has. Like being single meant my money wasn't truly mine. And when I finally started pushing back, asking why Evan never repaid me, why I was expected to rescue them constantly, Mom's response was simple: because you can. The final straw came 2 years ago. Grandma Louise, my dad's mother, passed away at 91. She wasn't wealthy by society's standards, but she'd owned a modest portfolio of stocks and a duplex in Somerville that she rented out for income. Her will stated clearly, to be divided equally between my grandchildren, Vanessa and Evan. I thought, for once, fairness might prevail, but when the estate settled, I received nothing. Grandma had outstanding debts, Dad claimed. The assets had to cover them. I was suspicious. I requested the probate records. My parents stonewalled. Evan ghosted me. 2 months later, Evan posted a photo on Instagram, standing proudly in front of a new commercial property downtown, a cafe startup he was launching. The down payment? Exactly the value of Grandma's duplex. They'd liquidated it behind my back, forged documents, shifted titles, and used my inheritance to bankroll Evan's latest dream. When I confronted my parents, they didn't deny it. We made an executive family decision, Dad said calmly. Evan needed it more. You have enough, Vanessa. That was the moment something inside me, the last fraying thread of loyalty, finally snapped. But unlike Evan, I didn't rage. I didn't scream. I made a plan. After the inheritance betrayal, I distanced myself. No angry blow-up, no social media rants, just silence. I changed my phone number. I stopped attending family gatherings. I unfollowed Evan's endless stream of entrepreneur hustle posts where he flaunted what was essentially my grandmother's money. At first, it felt like grief. Grieving not just Grandma, but the family I thought I had, or could maybe salvage. But as weeks turned into months, something shifted. Relief. Without constant financial emergencies, my life stabilized. I traveled. I bought a small condo in Back Bay. I invested in a little side business with a former college friend, a niche financial advisory firm specializing in real estate trusts and asset management. By the time I turned 35, I wasn't just successful. I was wealthy. Quietly, of course. That's how I liked it. But the past has a way of circling back. One chilly November morning, as golden leaves blew across Beacon Street, I got an email. Subject: Urgent Family Matter. Please respond. It was from Mom. Vanessa, I know we haven't spoken, but we need to talk. It's important. Please don't ignore this. We're at the end of our rope. Love, Mom. I almost deleted it, but curiosity and a touch of morbid loyalty made me reply. We met at a small cafe near the Charles River. The air smelled of roasted coffee and damp brick. Mom arrived overdressed for the setting. Camel wool coat, pearls, too much perfume. She smiled tightly. Vanessa, you look successful. What's this about? I kept my tone flat. Mom launched into a rehearsed speech. Your father's company is struggling. Evan's Cafe didn't take off like we hoped. He's been hit hard by the economy. Translation. Evan mismanaged the business. Again. We've fallen behind on the mortgage. The bank's threatening foreclosure? I said nothing. We thought, Mom continued, since you're so talented with finances, you could help us refinance or maybe lend us enough to get current. My fingers curled around my coffee cup. How much are you behind? She shifted uncomfortably. About $80,000. And the second mortgage you took out to cover Evan's debts? Her face paled. How did you... I read public records too, Mom. Silence stretched between us. Only the clink of cups and the hiss of the espresso machine filled the gap. Vanessa, she finally whispered, it's just money. Family is more important. I almost laughed. That's funny. That wasn't your philosophy when you stole my inheritance. We didn't steal it. You forged signatures. Mom glanced around nervously. Keep your voice down. No, Mom, for once I think it's time we're honest. Her eyes shimmered. Don't do this. We're family. No, I said quietly. We were family. You made an executive decision, remember? I stood, pulled my coat tighter. I'm not your safety net anymore. The calls began the next day. Dad, Evan, even Evan's girlfriend, who I barely knew, pleading, pressuring, guilt-tripping. You'll let your parents lose their home? You wouldn't be where you are without us. Stop being spiteful. It's just money. The more they pushed, the more resolute I became. I blocked their numbers. I changed my locks, just in case. And for the first time in years, I felt free. But freedom has its cost. At a holiday networking event 2 weeks later, I ran into Mr. Colton, my mentor from Monarch Financial. Vanessa, he greeted warmly, handing me a glass of Prosecco. I hear you've been making waves in private lending. Trying, I smiled. We're expanding Monarch's portfolio, moving into strategic property acquisitions. My breath caught. Residential or commercial? Both. We've acquired several properties this quarter, including some distressed assets. In Ashbury Heights, actually. My old neighborhood. A cold, eerie suspicion settled over me. Which property? He pulled up the list on his phone, and there it was. 59 Maple Grove Lane, my childhood home. We're finalizing the foreclosure, Colton said. The owners are months behind. Our plan is to renovate and flip. Unless you want it for your portfolio? I stared at the address. The white shutters. The red door. Yes, I said, my voice calm. I'll take it. They thought I was done, that I'd washed my hands of them. What they didn't know? I was just getting started. I purchased 59 Maple Grove Lane through a trust. No public records listed my name. No paper trail connected me to the sale. If my family thought the bank was just another faceless corporation, so be it. That was my intention. Before the ink dried, I requested a full history of the property's financials. When the folder arrived, thick, worn, stuffed with late notices and default letters, I spent an entire Sunday reviewing every page. It was worse than I thought. The original mortgage had been refinanced twice. Each time, they took out more equity to cover Evan's mounting debts. At the last refinance, they even listed me as a silent guarantor. Without my knowledge. Without my consent. I recognized my forged signature at the bottom of the form. They didn't just steal from Grandma, I whispered to myself. They stole from me again! And this time, they'd done it criminally. Even as I prepared my legal options, the messages kept coming. Blocked numbers. Burner accounts. Even handwritten letters slipped under my condo door. Vanessa, the house is more than just property. It's family history. Your brother is finally getting his life together. Don't sabotage him. We raised you better than this. I forwarded everything to my attorney. Maintain no contact, she advised. Let's stay clean. You've got more power than you realize. But they didn't believe that, because despite everything, they still underestimated me. In their minds, I was the dutiful daughter, the family accountant, the backup plan. She's too soft, Dad had once told Evan, not realizing I overheard. She might get mad, but she'll cave. She always does. Not this time. On a rainy afternoon in March, I received a formal letter from an attorney representing my parents. Notice of request to halt foreclosure proceedings. They wanted to contest the sale. Their argument? The daughter, Ms. Vanessa Clark, has a moral obligation to assist her aging parents and dependent brother. Denying assistance in this context reflects a lack of familial duty. I read the phrase twice. Then I read it again. Moral obligation. Not legal, not contractual. Just emotional manipulation wrapped in lawyer speak. They were trying to shame me into saving them again. The foreclosure was already scheduled, but rather than evict them quietly, my attorney presented an alternative. There's a clause in the contract. If you issue a public notice at least 45 days before the foreclosure date and it's uncontested, you can host a public property auction at your discretion. Discretion? I asked. Meaning, she smiled. You can choose the time, place, and even allow open attendance. An idea formed. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't rage. It was transparency. If they wanted the public to believe I was a villain, they'd have to do it while facing the truth. All of it. I hired a forensic document examiner. She confirmed what I already suspected. Multiple documents had forged versions of my signature. 2 notarizations were fraudulent. I hired a private investigator to review Evan's business finances. The cafe had gone bankrupt not because of the economy, but because he'd funneled money into gambling accounts and cryptocurrency schemes. I gathered every text, voicemail, email, and letter they'd sent me requesting money, spanning 15 years, proof of their pattern. Finally, I compiled the estate records from Grandma's probate, the falsified sale of her duplex, the missing funds, the signatures, the title transfers. My attorney assembled it into a binder labeled Clark Family Trust, Evidence of Fraud and Financial Exploitation. 2 weeks later, I issued the public notice. Foreclosure auction, 59 Maple Grove Lane, May 3rd, 10 a.m., open attendance, full financial disclosures available upon request. And in smaller print, Beneficiary Trust Representative, Vanessa Clark. The reaction was swift. Mom called my work office. You've embarrassed us, Dad emailed me. I knew you'd stoop this low. You're airing private family matters publicly? Evan texted me. What's wrong with you? I'm your brother. I didn't reply to any of them. Instead, I sent a single formal notice through my lawyer. All future communication must go through legal counsel. Ashbury Heights was small. News traveled fast. I heard from former teachers, childhood friends, even a few neighbors, some supportive, some judgmental. I can't believe you'd do this to your parents. Honestly, it's about time someone held them accountable. Isn't family more important than money? But the most common response? Wow, we didn't know the full story. Number. They hadn't, but soon they would. I thought they'd stay quiet until the auction. I thought for once they'd accept the consequences of their choices, but the Clark family didn't go down quietly. 1 week before the foreclosure date, I started receiving strange emails, anonymous, accusatory. Vanessa Clark exploits her elderly parents. Local businesswoman profits off family tragedies. Sources say she manipulated her grandmother before death. At first, I dismissed them as internet trolls, until a colleague forwarded me a Facebook post. A local community watchdog group shared a story titled, Ambitious Daughter Destroys Family to Advance Career. The attached photo? A cropped image of me at a charity gala, smiling, with the caption, Clark Family Insider says Vanessa forced her parents into default for profit. I felt my stomach drop. Mom. It had to be Mom. This was her language, her tactics, image over truth, perception over reality. That suspicion was confirmed 2 days later. I received a call from a reporter at the Ashbury Heights Chronicle. "Ms. Clark, we're preparing a story on the foreclosure. Would you like to comment before it runs?" "Where did you get your information?" "Your mother and brother reached out. They claim you're using business leverage to force them from their home." "Did they mention the forged documents? The theft of my inheritance? The fraudulent notarizations?" Silence. "No," the reporter admitted. "They said you've refused to assist them out of personal spite." I exhaled slowly. "I'll give you my statement tomorrow. I'll also provide evidence." Evidence? Oh, yes. More than you can imagine. That evening, I returned home to find a letter slid under my condo door. It wasn't from an attorney. It wasn't from the bank. It was handwritten, familiar looping script. "Vanessa, please, don't destroy the family over this. The auction will humiliate us. We'll never recover. Evan is in talks with investors. He just needs more time. Your father's health is fragile. Stress will kill him. I know you're angry, but you're better than this. We've always counted on you because you're the strong one. Don't let bitterness change that. We forgive you. We just need you to forgive us too. Love, Mom." I sank onto my couch, the letter shaking in my hands. "We forgive you." As if I were the betrayer, as if I'd stolen from myself. My phone buzzed, a voicemail transcribed on screen. "Evan, Ness, don't go through with this. You're making a mistake you can't undo. We'll be at the auction. We'll talk it out. You'll see reason." That was the language of control. The language of people who'd spent years believing my silence meant submission. This wasn't about forgiveness. It was about consequences. And for the first time in my life, I wouldn't flinch. I stood, walked to my kitchen, and opened the binder of evidence. At the very front was the foreclosure notice. Behind it, every forged document, every bank record, every misused dollar. I placed the letter from Mom at the back. It would be Exhibit A. The air was crisp. Spring sunlight spilled across the freshly cut lawn of 59 Maple Grove Lane. Lilacs were blooming near the mailbox, the same bushes Grandma Louise had planted decades ago. A crowd gathered, neighbors, curious strangers, a few reporters, and those who thrived on local drama. In the driveway stood my family, Dad in his best suit, shoulders squared like he still had authority, Mom in pearls and a pale pink dress projecting dignity, Evan in dark slacks and a blazer, sunglasses perched arrogantly on his head. They thought they were about to shame me, make a scene, force me to relent in front of witnesses. What they didn't know was that I'd already prepared the stage. The county auctioneer cleared his throat at exactly 10 a.m. "We're here today for the foreclosure sale of 59 Maple Grove Lane. As per public notice, the property will be awarded to the highest bidder unless prior settlement has been arranged. Before we begin," he added, "the beneficiary trust representative has a statement." That was me. I stepped forward, binder in hand. Mom's smile tightened. Dad glared. Evan crossed his arms. "Thank you, Mr. Fletcher," I began, voice steady. "Many of you know this home. Some of you know my family, but most of you don't know the full story. For over 15 years, I've provided financial support to my parents and my brother, Evan. I paid off debts. I covered mortgages. I even handed over my inheritance. Or rather, it was stolen from me under the guise of a family decision." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Cameras clicked. When I stopped funding their poor choices, they didn't accept responsibility. They forged my signature on financial documents. They took out a second mortgage using my name without consent. I held up the binder. "Every claim I'm making is backed by evidence. This binder contains notarized statements from a handwriting expert, bank records, and legal proof of fraud." Evan's face drained of color. Dad's lips thinned into a furious line. Mom shook her head violently. "That's not true," she cried. "I have the forensic reports to prove it," I replied calmly. "You could have handled this privately," Dad barked. "Family doesn't humiliate family." "Family doesn't defraud family either," I countered. A murmur of agreement ran through the audience. When I announced this foreclosure auction, my family launched a smear campaign. I gestured toward a stack of printed posts and emails beside the podium. They claimed I was greedy, ruthless, that I was exploiting them for profit. What they didn't tell you is that I offered them a private settlement. I offered to clear the debt if they acknowledged their wrongdoing and agreed to repay me fairly over time. They refused. Instead, they chose manipulation, public shaming, and when that failed, more lies. Reporters scribbled furiously. Neighbors whispered behind cupped hands. So today, I continued, this property will be sold, not out of spite, not out of revenge, but because actions have consequences, even for family. Mom stepped forward, eyes glistening. Vanessa, please, don't do this. We're your parents. We made mistakes, but this will destroy us. No, I said softly. Your choices destroyed your credibility, not me. I turned to the auctioneer. Let's proceed. The opening bid was set at $250,000. A few investors raised their hands. Numbers climbed. 300,000, 325, 350. Evan looked around wildly. Stop bidding, he hissed to one man. This is our family home. The man shrugged. Business is business. 400,000, 420, 450. As the numbers rose, Mom gripped Dad's arm like she might collapse. Evan was furiously texting someone, perhaps a last-minute rescue plan that wouldn't come. Finally, I lifted my own bidder's card. 500,000. The auctioneer paused. We have 500,000. Any further bids? Silence. Going once, going twice. Sold to Vanessa Clark. Dad exploded. You can't do this. You don't even want the house. You're just trying to punish us. No, I replied. I'm protecting myself and Grandma's legacy. You wouldn't have anything without us, Evan shouted, face red, fists clenched. We made sacrifices so you could succeed. No, I said. You made sacrifices to keep Evan afloat. I succeeded despite you. I opened the binder to a final document, a notarized letter Grandma Louise had written 2 years before her passing. Vanessa was always the responsible one, it read. If anything happens to me, trust her judgment. Don't let her kindness become a burden. Tears burned behind my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. You ignored her wishes, I told them. You exploited my loyalty, and now I'm done. Applause. Not loud, not mocking, just a quiet, supportive ripple. A few neighbors nodded. One elderly woman wiped a tear. Good for you, honey, she whispered as I walked past. The crowd began to drift away slowly, conversations hushed. No one smiled. Not at my parents, not at Evan. The truth had settled over the neighborhood like a sudden, unexpected frost. As the final bid was recorded and the document signed, I stood still for a moment. The weight of years, of silence, of sacrifice, of swallowing my pride, pressed against me. Yet underneath that heaviness was a strange calm, the kind of calm that comes when the storm has already passed and only the debris remains. Evan shoved past the sheriff, his face blotched red, lips twisted in fury. This is a setup, he shouted. She planned this from the start. You all think she's some hero? She's a snake. No one moved. Even the few investors who had bid earlier now kept their distance. The neighbors who once praised Evan's entrepreneurial spirit avoided his gaze. You betrayed us, he hissed at me. I stopped saving you, I corrected quietly. Same thing. That, right there, was the problem. In his mind, and in our parents', my refusal to enable their mistakes wasn't just a boundary. It was a betrayal. Mom gripped Dad's arm tightly, her face pale but defiant. Vanessa, we can fix this, she said quickly, her voice brittle. There's still time. Just reverse the sale. We'll figure out a payment plan. Quietly. No need for all of this. I shook my head slowly. It stopped being private the moment you forged my name and stole my inheritance. It was a family decision. No, I said. It was fraud. Mom's eyes filled with tears. For a second, I saw a glimpse of the woman who had once braided my hair before school and kissed my forehead at bedtime. But nostalgia couldn't rewrite reality. Dad remained silent, arms crossed, jaw clenched so tightly his face had gone ashen. "We'll sue," he muttered. Go ahead," I replied, "but you'll only expose more than you already have." "That's enough," Sheriff Wheeler interrupted firmly. "Ms. Clark acted within her rights. The court agrees. You have 5 days to vacate." "She's evicting her own family," Mom wailed. "The law is evicting you," Wheeler corrected, his tone leaving no room for argument. Evan cursed under his breath and stormed toward his car. The tires screeched as he sped away. As the dust settled, several neighbors approached me. Mrs. Callahan, the elderly widow from 2 doors down, rested a gentle hand on my arm. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "We didn't know. We thought you'd abandoned your family. I see now that it was the other way around." Mr. DeWitt, who had coached Evan's Little League team years ago, nodded gravely. "Takes guts to hold people accountable, especially when they're your own blood." I nodded, unable to trust my voice for a moment. "Thank you," I finally managed. 2 days later, while movers helped empty the house, Evan arrived again. This time, he carried papers, an emergency injunction attempt. "You can't take the house, Vanessa," he yelled. "It's ours. You owe us that much." Sheriff Wheeler glanced at the documents and shook his head. "Already denied by the judge. You're out of time." Evan's shoulders sagged. "This was my inheritance," he whispered. "No, Evan. You already spent your inheritance. And mine." He had no reply. He turned and walked away without another word. On the last day, as the house stood empty except for the memories etched into its walls, Mom approached me once more. "We made mistakes," she said softly, "but I never thought you'd do this." "I did what I had to," I replied. "We thought you'd always be the strong one." "I am. That's why this ends here." She nodded, eyes brimming with tears, but no longer filled with denial. Without another word, she joined Dad in the car, and they drove away. The family that once leaned on me until I broke had finally been forced to stand or fall on their own. Once the house was officially mine, I stood in the empty living room and let the quiet wash over me. It wasn't the suffocating silence I remembered from childhood, the kind where secrets festered and truths were buried. This silence was peaceful, resolute. I didn't sell the house. Instead, I renovated it. I replaced worn carpets with hardwood floors, painted the walls a soft, welcoming cream. The kitchen, once the place of so many tense conversations, was remodeled into a bright, open space. Then, I contacted Harbor Hope, a nonprofit helping women escape financial abuse and manipulative family situations. "I'd like to donate the use of the property," I told the director, "to provide transitional housing." Her eyes widened. "You'd do that?" "Yes. Let this place be a fresh start for others." My financial advisory firm thrived. I pivoted to specializing in clients, particularly women, navigating family financial abuse. I gave workshops, spoke at conferences, published articles titled "Boundaries and Balance When Family Becomes Financially Toxic." Clients told me things like, "Your story gave me courage to protect myself. I thought I was the only one going through this. You helped me reclaim my life." Their victories became part of my healing. 6 months after the foreclosure, an envelope arrived. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. "Vanessa, your father's health is declining. Evan has moved out of state. We have very little left. I'm not asking for money, only that we meet. We've lost so much. I want to understand how things got to this point. Please." I read the letter twice, then folded it carefully and placed it at the back of my evidence binder, the same binder that had once held the proof of every betrayal. I didn't reply, not out of spite, but because some doors, once closed, are meant to stay closed. One evening, as dusk settled over Maple Grove Lane, I visited the house. Through the large bay window, I saw the women living there now, sharing a meal, their laughter spilling out into the quiet street. One young woman noticed me and opened the door. "Thank you," she said softly, "for giving us a second chance." "It's what family should do," I replied. When people now ask about my family, I tell them, I was underestimated, betrayed, mocked, erased, but I reclaimed my story, my voice, my peace. And I will never give them up again. And I never did.